beginning there was Jack, and Jack had a groove, and from this groove came the grooves of all grooves. And while one day viciously throwing down on his box, Jack boldly declared, "Let there be house," and house music was born.
I never thought that my songs were going to start anything. It was just stuff I was just writing at home that I wanted to listen to.
From the underground clubs of Chicago, house has grown into the biggest musical phenomenon since rock and roll.
If somebody told me when I was younger that this music that we were making in our basement would be the shot heard round the world, I would say, give me some of what you smoking, pal. Because it's just unbelievable.
15 years later, and house dominates pop music. From Madonna to U2, no one has escaped its restless beat.
I think the house is a feeling, and I think that if you don't feel it, it can't be house.
It's a feeling that's turned DJs into superstars.
Chicago guys did it. They just took like disco grooves and rehooked them up, you know what I mean?
From the very beginning, it was the gay and black people that really kept dance music alive. Disco, dance music, it was really danceable R&B music that we were dancing to. And it wasn't until Saturday Night Fever came along that it exploded, and every Goomba in the suburbs start dancing.
If I can't have you, I don't want nobody, baby. If I can't have
At the end of 1977, Travolta showed everyone how to do the hustle. Disco came out of the underground.
nobody, baby. If I can't have you,
As the whole world caught Saturday Night Fever, Mel Cheren's partner, Michael Brody, had a vision of a new kind of nightclub.
Michael and I said, if people can dance together, they can live together. And that's why it was so important to bring all kinds of people, black, white, straight, and gay, together with music. And one day, Michael called me and said, Mel, I found the guy that's going to make it happen for me. And he was talking about Larry Levan.
This is 84 King Street, Paradise Garage. Larry was the talent. Larry was the music. Larry was the imagination. Larry was the spunk. Not to just, polish up Larry, but the truth of it is the truth. Larry was everything.
Opened in January 1978, the Paradise Garage had the biggest dance floor and the best sound system in New York. But it was resident DJ Larry Levan who made the garage legendary.
sometimes you get a thing from me, and you want my company. Yes, you do, baby.
He played music sometimes that was so intensive, music that made you get down, made your body go down.
He'd say, see that crowd over there? Watch what happens when I put this record on.
It was like Snake Charmer. He made you go like this, he made you go like that.
He wasn't great at mixing. He could if he wanted to. That wasn't his thing. He knew how to play a song.
He wouldn't just play one sound or one style. Dropping disco, various different rhythms.
That whole night you went in, you just came back singing songs, and you went home just thinking about what happened last night.
Such an exciting time and place. New York was the heart, and that's what attracted me to New York. I had to go because I was so into the music.
You gotta push it to me, baby. Push it to me, baby. You gotta start it to me, honey. If you want my money, if you want my money, you gotta make it good, honey.
technically a genius. The actual bass speakers were named after Larry. They were called the Van Horn.
You know, he controlled everybody. That was his job.
He would shut the music and go down, get a ladder, and clean the mirror ball if he didn't think it was clean enough.
And out of nowhere, boom, blast the music. Everybody, oh.
Come on, you can get it, anytime. Tonight is fine. I got my mind on you. Come on, you can get it, anytime. Tonight is fine.
First time I went, I was 17 years old. And I was like, my God, never seen a place like this before.
When you first went into it, it was like entering Dante's Inferno.
They spiked the punch, okay, and they would tell you that they were going to spike it that particular night. So that meant the whole crowd was just all on acid. You know, and next you know, you're just like so spacey, and then somebody handing you a popper, and you're doing the popper, you know, and everybody high on Quaaludes. All the deepest corners of the club, all right, you have people engaging in sex, you know?
I could never figure out how people could stay up that long, because I was kind of quite young then. I wasn't aware that they were doing drugs. So me and my friend, we used to just stay up all night, and, you know, come 7, 8 in the morning, we were literally exhausted, but then we brought out the coffee and we were on the coffee, and I always used to fall asleep on the subway going home and end up stuck in the Bronx.
A tastemaker of resolute individuality, Larry was an inspiration to a generation of DJs.
Larry could create a house party atmosphere with 2,000 people.
It really got me into the whole club and DJ kind of thing.
Paradise Garage set trends. Paradise Garage was one of the first of its kind. And 20 years later, people are still talking about the influence Paradise Garage had on music in the culture.
Disco sucks! Disco sucks!
But only 18 months after Saturday Night Fever, dance music was facing a massive backlash in America.
Disco sucks! Disco sucks! Disco sucks!
Steve Dahl was blowing up disco records out at Comiskey Park and, you know, getting all these rock and roll heads to join in. And, you know, there was a huge backlash on disco music.
This is now officially the world's largest anti-disco rally.
In 1979, DJ Steve Dahl led an anti-disco campaign that struck a chord throughout suburban America.
It was more about blowing up all this nigger music and, you know, destroying disco. Strange enough, I was an usher, working his way towards his first synthesizer at the time. What I noticed at the gates were people were bringing records, and some of the records were disco records, and I thought those records were kind of good. And some of those records were just black records. They weren't disco. They were just black R&B records. And I should have taken that as a tone for what the attitude of these people were. I know that nobody was bringing Metallica records by mistake. They might have brought a Marvin Gaye record, which wasn't a disco record, and that got accepted and blown up along with Donna Summer and Anita Ward, and so it felt very racial to me.
Is it all over my face?
Too black and too gay for middle America, disco went out of fashion as quickly as it began.
I'm in love dancing.
Radio stations switched to rock and pop. Record companies closed their dance labels.
Steve really hurt the dance music business. I mean, back in the day during the disco era, it was amazing the amount of music we were getting and the popularity of disco music. And all of a sudden, we had such a backlash. I mean, it went from being able to work in the nightclub of your choice and having a huge crowd and making good money to basically not even being able to get a gig at that point.
Of course, in the underground, it was business as usual.
I'm surprised to see your suitcase.
In 1977, club promoter Robert Williams brought a young DJ from New York to play at his new club, The Warehouse. His name was Frankie Knuckles.
Because of Frankie's music style, no one could touch him at that point.
I'll be right there. Yes, I will.
Going down to Frankie's Club, he had a certain mystique about himself and the music that nobody knew but him and a few others.
Knuckles played the classics. You know, he would bang stuff out, but he's more classy.
He played a lot of more underground things that were, you know, like loose joints. Is It All Over My Face? And I think Anita Ward Ring My Bell before it ever hit commercial. I mean, he was playing it probably 3, 4, 5 months before it even came out.
It was the only place in the city that you could go and hear this type of music.
Yeah. He had totally cornered the market.
That was the thing. That's how it started off, because there was nowhere else to go.
'Cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough.
Knuckles brought the energy of New York's gay scene to Chicago.
Getting to you.
It wasn't long before straight kids were checking out the club.
This music was really something that would grab your soul. I mean, you could feel the groove, and I mean, the basses were heavier. You know, the vocals were very soulful and uplifting, you know, and everything. So it was just, and for gay people especially, you know, they're very animated. This would just really, I mean, they would take this music to new heights. Like hands in the air and flailing, and they're on the walls, and they're jumping on top of speakers, and they're all from this end to the other, and I'm just like, wow, this is incredible.
You had never seen, you knew that there were gay people around, you knew that they partied, but you had never seen like two guys kiss in front of you.
The place was like this throbbing, hot, you know, mixtures of just body to body. And I mean, you know, yes, I remember it was, you know, all black people and mostly all black men. There were a few women, not very many, you know, but it was just a really cool place, and it made me feel at home.
I think at that time it changed a lot of people's perception of stuff. I think that a lot of straight people found like it's okay, you could talk to somebody that's gay.
When you look up and guys are kissing, you're like, well, they're not kissing me, so you know, I'm doing my thing.
The Warehouse was a sensation in Chicago, but no one could have imagined that it was about to give its name to a whole new style of music.
If you were a DJ in Chicago, if you wanted to have the records, there was only one place to go, and that was Imports. This is where Imports was. People would come in and looking for warehouse music, and we would put, you know, as heard at the warehouse or as played at the warehouse. And then eventually we just shortened that down to, because people also just in the vernacular, they started saying, yeah, what's up with that house music? Now, at this time, they were talking about the old classics, the South Soul, the Philly classics and such. So we'd put on the labels for the events, we'd say house music. And people would start coming in and eventually just asking, yeah, where's the new house music?
House was originally used to simply describe the style of music played at the Warehouse.
Primarily, it was a lot of the old disco records, and not the poppy type disco record. You know, it wasn't instant replay from Dan Hartman, but it was Scat Brothers' Walk the Night.
And we used to just dig in the crates and find something that people forgot about and bring it back.
With such a limited supply of old tunes, DJs became increasingly creative on the decks.
Chicago style is to have a tight blend, to have everything even, to sound musical. You know, when you're not mixing vocals on top of vocals, you know, you're finding a place where one record goes with another and it feels right. If you watch the crowd and you see that they like a certain part of the record, then you can repeat that part, you can tease them with it, bring it in for a second, take it out, you know. Like there's a part in here where it goes, but it doesn't come in till the end. So say I wanted to bring that part in, then I would, if I had it planned, I'll just show you how I would move to that section. Like right now it's on the beginning of the record. I'm gonna take this one and move the record up to the umda. I might slam it, or I can... Say I wanted to play that part, but I want to get to the verse quicker, I'll just do that. Basically, if I would just use the double copies to just be able to manipulate the record to whatever section I want to use, whatever I want to do. Like I may intend to play the whole record, but the crowd may not want to hear it.
These type mixing techniques were honed to perfection on radio station WBMX by the Hot Mix 5.
Live on location from Chicago, this is the Hot Mix Dance Party with Scott Smokin' Seals.
Well, the original Hot Mix 5 would be myself, Scott Smokin' Seals, Kenny Jam and Jason, Farley Funk and Keith, who is now Farley Jackmaster Funk. He had a change of name there. Mickey Mixon Oliver, and Ralphie. It was Ralphie Rock and Rosario back then. I think initially there actually would have been 6 of us, and one of the guys didn't show up that day. Poor Jeff Davis. Sorry, Jeff.
It was just such a mystique to that whole show. You know, Saturday Night Live, ain't no jive. I remember that was what they used to say.
If you went around the country and you listened to other DJs play, if you went to New York or even some of the underground clubs here, you would have maybe a 7-minute record. They would play 6.5 minutes of the record, and then they would just segue out at the end. The Hot Mix 5, on the other hand, was different. They would play 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes of the record, take the best part out, play the break, repeat the break a couple times, and just give you the meat of the record that you wanted, and forget the rest of the garbage that was in there as filler. And that's what really, really made the Hot Mix 5 style.
They were doing these mixes, sort of like what you were hearing at the club, but mixes on radio, and at that time, it was unique to me, and maybe unique to a lot of other people, too.
You know, as the show developed and, you know, we were trying to do more and more creative things, you know, you'd get out the razor blade and start cutting tape, you know, with reel-to-reels and stuff, and trying to make the stuff even more creative than it already was with 2 turntables and a mixer.
But it was when DJs started adding drum machines that house really started to take shape.
People just figured, hey, let me try and make up my own kind of, you know, beats or rhythms to compensate for the lack of music.
Sometimes it seems the going is just too rough, and things go wrong no matter what I do. Now and then
Typical for house music back in the day to try to give it a harder edge. Something soft like that with a hard beat like that. Nothing like what hardcore is today, but back then this was our hardcore, believe me. Then take the beat out, bring the beat back. Beat out, beat back in. Record with beats, a cappella, both together. To take it to a higher significance, when you turn the drum machine on, you just play beats, people would just scream. You take the kick drum out, bring it back in, and just scream all night.
And they would do these tracks so that when they DJ'd, you know, that everybody would run to the DJ booth and go like, wow, what's that? What's new? What's, you know, man, what's that? And so it was sort of like a status thing. It became a status thing. Who could come up with the hottest track?
Competition between DJs was getting intense.
I would say right around 83, 84. My DJ name was Steve Silk Hurley. and I said I was gonna start calling myself Jackmaster Silk. And Farley was my roommate at the time.
And when he said that, I was like, how can you change your name to Steve Jackmaster Hurley? I'm the real Jackmaster because I put this like, I do that in all my records, then I sample it, right?
By Friday, his name was changed to Farley Jackmaster Funk.
I went and said, Farley Funkin' Keith is dead. He no longer exists. There's a new guy in town. His name is Farley Jackmaster Funk. Needless to say, Steve was on his way to the radio station with his tape, ready to make the new announcement that he is going to change his name to Steve Jackmaster Hurley, and almost ran into a pole.
I couldn't believe it. It was the worst.
In 1983, a new club opened in Chicago, the Music Box. Its DJ Ron Hardy had an intensity that took clubbing to a whole new dimension.
This was Ron's club. This was definitely in nobody else's. It was owned and ran by Robert Williams, but it was Ron Hardy's club.
He would never, ever not be there. You know, the kids would not even come if he wasn't there. Ron had people just, I don't know, losing their minds down there.
You would hear this music. I mean, you didn't even have to be this close. I mean, as soon as you turn the corner, you just hear this thumping, beating music.
It was the loudest music I'd ever heard in my life. I mean, it physically shook me. I'm not talking about like emotionally, I'm talking about physically. It was so loud that it would move me it would move me when they bring in the bass, boom, boom, boom. I would shake, right, like that.
Ronnie would keep you going and keep you going. That's why they call him Heart Attack Hardy. He would keep you going and going and going until you like just actually have a heart attack.
And then all I know is the people were screaming Ron Hardy's name. Ron Hardy, punk that Ron Hardy, doing all this. And I was like, oh, nobody screamed like that for me before.
There will never be another place like that where Ron Hardy was doing what he was doing. I mean, this man, it was like voodoo with dance music, you know? If I had to think about it today, or if I was thinking about it when I was playing records every time, I wouldn't play. I would stop, because I'd look at these people, I'd look at these clubs, I'd say, this is bullshit, and I would just leave. That's why I can't think about it, because there's no comparison. It just makes everything else shit.
We're a long way from home. Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. On our way home.
He opened every night with Welcome to the Pleasure Dome.
Long way from home. Welcome to the Pleasure
Dome. He played real fast. That's because he was high on heroin and things were kind of sounding slow to him, you know. So he speeded it up. And in doing so, he speeded the party up.
All types of drugs went around there.
Yeah, I mean, acid was big, MDA was big, MDA, which is a precursor of ecstasy. You know, an MDA and stuff like that, you just mixed it in a cocktail and gulped it down.
Or eat it, or lick it.
Yeah, well, licking it was a hard way to take that shit, boy. Oh my God, I mean, that's just like straight into your system, you know, and it tasted terrible.
Going home, the love is strong. Long way from home. Welcome to the Pleasure Dome.
We were kind of into this punk out here, and playing music like some of the Blondie tunes and the B-52s.
Rock Lobster. And when they did the part where it said, down, 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 everybody went down on the ground.
We'd come out of craft work and go into, One Nation Under a Groove.
So it was like a really weird time for music because you had all these black kids dancing to punk music.
Basically, when we were doing the punk out age, it was basically you would take a woman, you would bend her over, and you were just there, just basically grinding on her ass, dancing. This was punking out. And that kind of, then when jacking came about, it just kind of carried over from that.
Jacking, first became aware of jacking at the Music Box.
It was just part of the language, part of the culture. Just people say, you know, I'm going to go down to the box, you know, I'm going to jack my body.
It would be like maybe one girl, and it would be 7 guys dance with one girl, and she'll be in the middle, and they would be in a circle around her, and they would jack, which was like she might be bent over or something, they would be standing behind her.
Guys jacking women, guys jacking guys, girls jacking girls.
Jacking with this fucking speaker was always a hometown favorite.
Or the wall.
You know? Or the wall, whatever was handy.
If you were lucky enough to have a person with you, then yeah, you're jacking to that person. But if you didn't, you find a pole, you find a wall, it fills a doorway. You just get on the door and you just jack in your body all night long.
And it was also really kind of contagious. You know, once you would start in one part of the dance floor, before you knew it, everybody was engaged in this sexual pantomime.
I've even heard some stories about more than just the jacking going on behind the speakers.
And I mean, you could do all sorts of freak shit on the floor. You know, I mean, no shit, you could be grabbing girls' breasts, you could be putting your finger in certain places, you know, I mean, on the
TV,
floor. Yeah, this TV, right, sorry.
In the Music Box, they were having sex.
Yeah. You could do all sorts of unspeakable things on the dance floor, but that was on the dance floor. That was like its own world.
Once the lights came on and the party was over with.
Yeah, then you were going home.
This place is probably responsible for some children.
Everybody that I took there, it changed their lives. Everybody, it did. It inspired everybody I know.
House was about to produce its very first star. In 1984, a demo tape unlike any other spread like a virus through the clubs of Chicago.
My friend had a copy of 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 a copy. One guy would get a copy of a tape from Frankie, and it would be copied thousands of times all over the city.
There was this one little sequence line in it. It was just like a 3-note line and just repeated. But when that came on, everyone knew that was Your Love. I mean, the crowd, everybody. It was a big thing.
Everybody was singing along with the song. Everybody, in the whole crowd. And it was the shit. The track was bumping. It was the shit.
Jamie was God to us. We had no idea he was like a kid in his bedroom making music. I thought Jamie was a millionaire in Europe somewhere. I didn't even know he was black.
I hear the song and I just remember the reasons why I wrote it. So, but a lot of people tell me, you know, that song touched me and this and this, and I'm grateful, you know, that happened for them.
The son of strict parents, Jamie hadn't even visited the clubs that Your Love was being played in.
We grew up listening to like classical music, gospel music, some pop, some R&B. So I was pretty well-rounded. It's just that it was only certain days you could play that music in the house, pretty much. I was in a relationship with a young lady by the name of Lisa Harris, and we were pretty serious. And it was the first relationship that I had that I felt was really real for me. I was always waiting, looking for that one individual person to feel like I have a connection with. And when I met her, it just happened. I kind of like, and when I talk to her still, because we still talk, I tell her if it wasn't for her, these songs wouldn't have been written.
When your body next to me, I begin to sweat. When we touch, I lose control. Now you know what's next. Fantasizing all the time with your body next to mine.
I sent this tape to every company in New York, and they turned it down. This is not what we're looking for. We're not into this. So I was like, fine.
But his tape was huge in the clubs.
Well, I need your love. I need your love. I need your love.
Your Love was the year zero in the evolution of house music.
I need your touch. Don't make me
just a brilliant track. You know, you take a hit nowadays and you ask somebody what was so good about it, they can't really tell you. This hook, the hook, the bass line, all that. But a great song is a great song, and that Jamie did some great songs, like 3 or 4 in a row, and they went all over the city, but they just weren't out on record.
I mean, I feel like it was a divine hand in it because it was so many different variables. If I wasn't in this situation, I wouldn't have wrote the song. I wasn't going to ever take the tapes to Frankie, so my friend had to do it. If he never would have did it, none of this would be how it is now. I wouldn't even be sitting here talking to you right now. So it's a divine situation for me.
I mean, it's still to this day totally hypnotic. The version of Your Love that got released was not the best one. It was
the
okay.
One that was, the one that was released.
It wasn't the best one. I mean, the original still isn't released.
Which I still need to get a copy of that.
Yeah, it's around. I got one. Okay. But it's just on tape because it never was on record.
No longer about recycling old disco, house was something new, something fresh. It just wasn't on vinyl until On and On.
Jesse Saunders, On and On. The very first house record. To this day, I've had people offer me $1,000 for this, if not more.
I had noticed that all of the girls thought that he was such a cute guy DJ. And he said he was singing, so I thought I'd put him in front. I thought that, okay, you have a band, you got a cute guy up front, heartthrob for the girls. You got the musicians taking care of business behind the scenes.
So Vince, Vince is the type of person, he's just Mr. Information. He just goes, oh, we do this, and my father has a record label, and it does this, and the pressing plant is here, and this is how you do the label, and this is what you do this, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there like, okay,
And we didn't know what we were making. We were just making music from what we listened to at the club. Everything was 4 on the floor, so that's what we started making,
I recorded the drums here and the bass and put overdubs of the keys, all kinds of effecty synth stuff on there. And then Vince and I, did this corny little rap.
And Jesse liked this line from White Horse where it said, "Bitch, wanna be rich, got to be a bitch." So it goes on and on. And Jesse says, "Bitch."
On and on. Just clap to the beat. Jesse thinks it's me. It's on and on.
Jesse and Vince got their tune into the clubs and onto the radio. By the time they turned up at Imports, etc., On and On was a must-have record.
And they're like, "Where'd you get this record?" They're like, "We made it. It was us. We did it. We did this record." And the guy said, "Really? What do you mean?" I'm like, "We made the record. It's our record. It's on our record company. See, that's my handwriting on the label."
Vince wrote this. This was just a blank cover. He hand wrote this himself.
He goes, "How many you got?" I'm like, "You might want to think about it, because I got 1,000 of them in my car. How many do you want?" And he says, "I'll take them all. How much do you want for them?" And I very quickly thought to myself, okay, it costs us $1 to make the records. And I want to get $2 at least, because then I'll make 50 cents and Jesse will make 50 cents and we'll be cool. I said $4, figuring the guy would want to negotiate me down. He said, okay. And he wrote me a check for $4,000. Jesse and I walked out of the store, got in the car, and screamed. And we were selling 20 and 30,000 records just in Chicago. I was maybe 17, 18 years old driving a Corvette, and flying to New York and doing all this stuff that, up until that point was all just, pipe dreams to me.
It didn't sound like much, but On and On was the spark that triggered the Chicago house boom.
That was the single most important record to me of the 20th century, because it let the non-musician know that he could make music.
Everybody thought when they first heard the record was, gee, I can do better than that, and why don't I give it a shot? The first thing you have to do is you have to start off with a strong kick drum. And then you have to have a bass line. And from there, you build on it. You build on it with snare drums. You build on it with the hi-hat. You build on it with the rim shot, with the claps.
And then we just needed something to say over it. So I ended up saying "Time to Jack" and just kind of pitch my voice down a little bit. And history was made.
Time to Jack. Time to Jack. Time to Jack.
I can remember the first time I heard it played in a club was a club on Rush Street called the Mars Bar, and Farley was playing there. And I took it to him, and he looked at it, he put it on, he listened to it in the headphones. About 5 seconds later, he slammed the fader over, and you hear just this thump, boom, 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 boom. And then all of a sudden you hear, "Time to Jack." The crowd just went fucking wild. People just lost their minds.
By 1985, every kid in Chicago with a drum machine was making house.
For a time, Chicago house just took over. You couldn't go to a club and just not hear our music, and it was a great moment.
Now it was about to take flight outside Chicago.
They didn't know how to play their instruments. Most of them weren't even musicians. They came along with the music media, with the electronic revolution. They learned how to beat out simple rhythms on the drum machines that nobody knew about. And they learned how to use sequencers when sequencers were strange toys. They were innovators, pioneers. It was just a special time.
Larry Sherman owned Chicago's only record pressing plant. As the first wave of house tracks emerged, he launched the Trax label.
If the guy brought in a tape today, I tried to have a record out within a week. That's kind of what set Trax apart, was the ability to get the materials into the marketplace. We didn't have to wait for somebody to say, well, I think this might be a good record, I might buy it. We came in and said, this is a great record and you need it. This is house. Do you like it? It's wonderful stuff.
Early releases like Adonis's No Way Back defined the emerging house sound.
Release my soul, I lost control.
But it was business skill that made Trax the dominant label.
Vinyl at that time was running about 70 cents a pound or 30 cents a record, roughly. I couldn't afford it to produce large quantities because the cash flow was terrible. So I bought...
Wasn't virgin vinyl.
And I apologize to the public on this one. The reason that some of the records were at best shoddy at sometimes was because I just ran the parts. If they would still fit in the machine and didn't come out, I was running records. Made the best record you could make for a quarter.
By now, club kids were firing the music's evolution. In late '85, a couple of music box fans spawned a new style of house by abusing a machine designed for karaoke.
Well, basically, we started using the 303 just to try to make bass lines, because when we first started making music, it sucked. So I made this rhythm, what you hear playing right now.
And it's just playing straight. He said, but I can't figure out how to work this thing. It's still doing this weird, like, sound. You know, it's like, I don't know how to program it. So he's like, he said, maybe you could figure out how to program it, because it didn't come with a book. And so I was like, instead of trying to program it, I just started turning knobs. I was like, ugh. And he was like, well, what you doing? I was like, I'm turning these knobs. He said, keep doing that. I'm like, I'm turning the knobs. And we just sitting there for like 30, 40 minutes. I'm just turning knobs. And like, yeah, I like that. I like that.
There's been 5,000 acid house records after that one, and nobody did it like Pierre. Pierre did it in a musical way that followed the mood of the song. Everybody else just turned knobs, man. No, it's never been done like that.
So if anybody would be daring enough to play this, it'll be Ron Hardy.
He ended up playing it 4 times that night. The first time he played it, the people didn't really know how to react to it.
He played it again. People was looking like, I guess it's early. He playing some crazy stuff.
The 4th time, they lost their mind. And that was the birth of acid right there.
Ron Hardy gave me DJ Pierre's tape.
Marshall Jefferson was the ear for Larry Sherman. Larry Sherman had no clue what was going on with the music.
You know, I said, Larry, you gotta put this out. You gotta put it out. He said, there's no words on it. I said, yeah, but you said that about Can You Feel It?
Can You Feel It brought jazz sophistication to the raw house beat. But despite a string of classics, bitterness was bubbling at Trax Records.
You get the contract, he tells you how much money he's gonna give you, and that's it. And meanwhile, this guy could be making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on your music.
All you had to do is say, this is a standard contract, and they say, oh, well, if it's a standard contract, where do I sign, you know? A lot of kids, you know, for $1,000, Larry would give them $1,000 and say, but I own everything.
If you don't have the money, you can't go get a lawyer to read the contract for you. The retainer fee alone with a lawyer is gonna kill you.
Larry's admonitions to his artists who are signing up without lawyers, he would, at least I heard him say this, and he seemed to be, you know, doing it. He seemed to be proud of the fact that he was giving them this, like, warning in advance. You know, he says, oh, look, you say, I want you to know that this is a business. He says, and if I can screw you, he says, I will. You know what I mean? And he meant it, you know what I mean? And not that he's any more unusual than any other record company, in my opinion, but I always admired him because he was honest enough to tell them in advance that, you know, you might be, you know, in for a real experience here.
The pioneers of house had sold their tracks to Sherman. But as record sales boomed, some felt hard done by.
I mean, what would happen is they would go there with their first record because he was only planting town.
They had reservations, but the thing of wanting to get their music out was just a little stronger, and so they're trying to do the best deal that they can do. But it just wasn't good enough, you know?
Larry's deal is a deal. It's an opportunity. Guys get to put records out. But you may not make any money. That's just the deal.
The paperwork is right. The people got paid handsomely in the early stages. It's just a general consensus in house that they're of the opinion that they sold more records than the business dictated.
Move your body. The burning desire to dance had defiantly spawned on new music.
Move your body.
It was not without cost. Both Larry Levan and Ron Hardy were to die of drug-related illness in 1992. But their legacy is a music that has taken flight far beyond the clubs of its birth. Without such pioneering DJs, dance music would never have flourished. Without labels like Trax, house music may never have left Chicago. But without Marshall Jefferson, house wouldn't have Move Your Body.
You can't go wrong. Give me that high.
everybody said it wasn't house music when I first did it. That piano, what the hell is that doing there? You know, who you think you are, Fast Domino? You know, yeah, you don't put no piano on no house record. That ain't house music. So I called it the house music anthem.
And the response to the house music national anthem, Move Your Body, was just international.
I equate the record to like Bill Haley and the Comets, Rock Around the Clock, right? Rock and roll was before that song, but that gave everybody the name, because right after Move Your Body came out, reporters start coming from all over the world. What's house music? What's house music? What's house music? Right? So, you know, Move Your Body said, gotta have house music all night long. With that house music, you can't go wrong. You know, give me that house music. Then it's called the house music anthem. Sexy body, move your body.
House had a sound. It had a name. By 1986, it was ready to cross the Atlantic.
When I went to London, it was all over the radio, all the clubs. I said, this scene reminds me of Chicago.
For me, it's an amazing thing to see that another country embraces our music bigger than the country that we're from.
House music's bigger than any one person. It's bigger than all of us. And I would have to say to have a portion of its inception be my legacy. You know, I feel that that's just an honor. I'm flattered.
Move your body, move your body.
More on the pioneering innovation that is Pump Up the Volume next week, same time. The book, Pump Up the Volume, priced $9.99, and the official double CD, History of House, featuring tracks from the show, are out now. To order your copy, call 0870 1234 or click on to channel4.com/shop.